Dear Governor, reading a newspaper article about you suspending the execution left me somewhat ambivalent of your decision, but watching your speech made it clear that you made the right choice and that it was an example of a leader. What matters is not what decision a person makes, but why they make it. A good leader will be able to justify their choices with sound reasoning. They will also have the courage to make tough choices. In the past, I may have opined that the death penalty is good because it saves the cost of having to continue housing the inmate. However, that would be an example of making a decision without all the facts, since there is no savings if getting to death takes so much effort. And if you are on death row, unless you are willing to accept society's ultimate punishment, wouldn't you want to get back at the government that put you there by making it spend money on you on a high-priced defense for you? The only reason that I can think of why someone would give up, literally giving up their life, is that they find confinement worse than what's essentially assisted suicide. Overall, if only 2 people had been executed in the decades that we have had the latest chapter of the death penalty, neither of whom were actually involuntarily killed, isn't that an example of a farce? And while it is officially the will of the voters to have a death penalty, that was measured 25 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. In addition, might the victims' relatives and others involved in the trials be served better by having to settle for life sentences, but being able to actually reach a final resolution that allows them to leave the incident behind and move on? As for future potential victims, it is doubtful that anyone willing to commit such a heinous crime would care about the possibility of facing death and might even be encouraged to do a better job avoiding capture. That being said, I believe there may be a group of criminals who do deserve to die, those that kill either in prison or after having escaped. If they're unable to behave in a confined environment free of the effects of society, there may be truly no hope for them, though the culture of prison life should be considered. In addition, under supervision, they can be reminded of the possibility of death, and the threat of it can be used to achieve better behavior. And what about those who have no choice of leaving prison and are willing to die? Why not grant them that as an alternative to what can end up being decades of costs for housing, feeding, and caring? Still, unlike today, there would be no group of people that are supposedly going to die and can choose or need to tie up the legal system and devour taxpayer dollars to stay in that group. That is the only downside I see with your decision, that we have someone who has been sentenced to die, wants to die, and arguably maybe should die, but is being denied that request. But if continued inmate costs and further anguish to those involved in the case is the cost of ending the farce that is the capital punishment in Oregon, that would be a small cost.